Hello, everyone, and welcome to the session. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Ryan Wilday, leading analyst for the cryptocurrency trading service on ElliotWaveTrader.net. Ryan has over 2 decades of experience trading equities, futures, and options, and he began trading cryptocurrencies in 2013. Now, to our live viewers, please share any questions you have throughout this session into the live chat box, should be located to the right of your video player. We will try to get to as many questions as we can after the presentation. And with that said, Ryan, I'll hand the mic on over to you. I'll be here if you need me, but the floor is all yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending, and it's good to be back. I've been presenting for Money Show about 7 years now. Hopefully, I've had a chance to meet some of you guys in person, and hopefully, some of you guys are aware of my work over the years. So, Bitcoin, running Bitcoin to the finish line. Obviously, with this title, I am talking about how Bitcoin should be topping soon, and we'll get to that. But first, let's see. If you'd like a copy of the presentation. You can use the QR code on the right side. I'll keep us frozen here for about 10 seconds if you want to get out your phone. If you are low tech, you can email info@elliottwavetrader.net and ask for the presentation. And Tom will be willing to hand that to you. At the same time, if you are interested in what I have to say and you would like to experience actually our entire site, not just my service, for a couple weeks for free, we have you can go to the link on the left side. It says cryptocurrency, but it'll allow you to get a trial to everything and then decide what you want to do from there. And we don't take credit cards. We don't hound you. It's just there for an offer, and you choose what you like. All right, so I'll give it about 5 more seconds here. I know some folks are slow with their phone. I'm one of those guys now, so I'll give you a chance. All right, let's move on. Yeah, so I was properly introduced. I don't think I need to say more, but if you have questions about my background, do share. I've had, and all of this is, probably through the annals, well documented within the Money Show. Some of the calls I've made. I don't want to elaborate on them too much, but this one, looking for 125 Bitcoin, has been in the sort of docket, in the plan, since 2021. I expected actually a major market top around 65K, but the structure that we had in 2021, which is where it topped, actually led me to believe that we would see another top subsequent in where we have basically find ourselves now. So have a pretty good record. I don't want to use these calls to say, hey, I'm always right. I have plenty of wrong calls along the way, whether it be in small moves in Bitcoin or maybe some of the equities we cover as part of the crypto service as well. But on the long terms, the Elliot Wave analysis works pretty darn well. I'm fairly adept to it and its use, and it's guided us nicely along the way. So again, not meant to be boastful, but just want to share where I'm coming from, and you'll see some of those previous looks at the future in this slide presentation. Again, disclaimers. I mean, I'll summarize this as nothing I say here is advice. In fact, I know in my own service that those that subscribe to my content trade and invest in so many different ways. I may be a guide of sorts, but again, everyone needs to right size whatever is said to their needs, their approach, their capital, their emotions, all of that. So don't get involved in anything I say here unless you have done your research, you get comfortable with it, and you understand your risk exposure. The Elliot Wave theory, I mean, just quickly, if you've been in technical analysis forever, you know it's sort of a school of thought within Elliot Wave. The main thing I would say about it is what we're trying to do is track sentiment and the cycles of sentiment, but we also believe that the cycles of sentiment, the trends move in 5 waves and correct in 3, and those movements are fractal. So if you look at this, this is 5 waves here, but the 1, 3, and 5 are also broken up to 5 waves, and we have 3 wave corrections. That's the most basic structure of Elliott Wave, but more than that, we believe that there is a mathematical structure to this, and that's where we derive pivot points, support levels, resistance, all those good things that is part of any technical analysis system, so you know where to trade and how to define your risk, as well as what your potential reward is. Without those, you cannot trade, right? Hopefully everyone's understood that. Or I would say, invest. Now, you may invest by fundamental means. I certainly don't discount fundamentals, but I don't do anything without some sort of technical analysis, whether it be Elliott Wave or some of the other schools of thought that I use occasionally. But most of this work is based on this theory, and so I'll be speaking from that standpoint. The goals of this presentation, I want to warn you about a potential, and I'm using that again with the belief that I can be wrong, that there is an incoming bear market in Bitcoin. And I'll also explain where my view will change so that you know, again, like I said, I can be wrong, but I'll tell you where I'm going to be wrong. And explain that the current narratives in Bitcoin, I should say, in the Bitcoin market are dangerous. And so I'll elaborate on that. And the reason I say that is I find a lot of both my subscribers being tied into it as well as the general public. It's all of these narratives are kind of what you'd expect at a top, really, honestly. But yeah, we'll elaborate on that. And then some key levels to watch closely as Bitcoin nears a potential top. Okay. So I'm going to take us to the zoomed out view and down into the micro action we've seen of late and talk about the levels I'm watching today. Unfortunately, when I present, every time I present, it's sort of a snapshot in time. And as more market, the market gives more information, I get new levels. But I do believe the ones that I'm going to share today have some importance that have some shelf life. So you can also watch them from home as they develop in the market on your own. One thing I've been a trader for 20 years. I would say investor and trader, but I'm so passionate about trading. I can't go a day without trading. Even now that I have crypto, I can even do it on the weekends. It's kind of sad. But one thing that makes me is a student of markets, and there's a lot of impressions about what makes a market top. Okay, so first of all, markets don't top because of selling coming in. They come because of immense buying coming in and everyone piling in. That needs a little bit of unpacking, but we'll get to that. Remember that, or know that a market is an open auction market. Basically, there is a bid and there is an ask. I mean, that's of course a very simplistic view. There are lots of players in markets. There are institutions, market makers, retailers, hedgers, et cetera, et cetera. But there's basically, when you get the market down to what it really is, it's a bid and an ask. That bid is a price with a size, and there's an ask with a size. Now, when everyone comes in to buy, who will buy and gets their tush off the couch and gets into the market, eventually everyone is so in that the bid disappears. Okay, we saw that in the housing market 2007. Everyone was rushing to buy a house as houses were rocketing, and eventually everyone that could buy a house, could get a bank loan, got into the market, and there was simply no bid left because everyone had already bid. Okay, and that's exactly how we can expect any auction market to top in a major way. Okay, and this the impression is, most often is, okay, well, who's going to sell this market? Okay, you don't need someone to sell the market until after the bid disappears. Now, there are players in the market that facilitate trade, particularly market makers, sometimes hedge funds, et cetera, et cetera. They have to find a bid. Okay, and that means that the market will trade lower until it finds a bid. Okay. And eventually you get things like margin levels breaking, you get panic selling and all of that. So you can go on and on what turns into a feedback loop. But when the real selling begins, the bid already disappeared, and now the market's trying to find lower, and then it's starting to pressure those weak points in the market like margin levels, maybe fearful owners, holders, et cetera, et cetera. And then you get the real slide. Okay. So this is the process by which markets top. And again, that's very different from, imagining that there has to be some giant seller to jumpstart it. Okay. All you really need is a sort of an evacuation of the bid. The bid is gone, it's evaporated, and the market has to come down to find one. Okay. And that's a process that happens time and time again, and it's starting to happen in Bitcoin. I don't see it in the data, but that's what we'll see as we get near a top. I don't know who to attribute this to, except that AI tells me that there's all sorts of people that said things like this. Like Warren Buffett's famous quote, that to buy when everyone's fearful and sell when everyone's greedy. But this is really important. Markets bottom when the news is the worst. Okay, tops when the news is the best. And there was a lot of good news in crypto And there was a lot of terrible news when Bitcoin bottomed in 15,500 in 2023, including one of the larger exchanges, FTX, turning out to be a scam, or at least one that didn't really have the funds to cover their liabilities. And people back then said this is the end of crypto. Okay, but no, it became the bottom. And right now, there's a lot of good news. We've got a pro Bitcoin administration in the United States. Not that Bitcoin is a country-specific market; it's global. But we've got, I guess you can say the largest economy in the world now has administration that's pro Bitcoin, and the shackles are coming off some of the Bitcoin companies, et cetera, et cetera. But be careful with that. Okay. All right. And then again, I allude to this a little bit. What misruns the Bitcoin cycle? And again, first of all, it's our pro crypto administration taking the shackles off Bitcoin prices. Again, they're not taking the shackles off Bitcoin prices. They're taking the shackles off Bitcoin or crypto companies, okay, by deregulating or not enforcing. But that does not mean that prices will continue up. That does not perpetuate the bid, so to speak. To go back to my theory, well, it's more than my theory, that it's the bid drying up that first tops a market. And this take up of supply of Bitcoin by treasury companies, this new strategy, MSTR being one of those companies, or the founding company of this strategy, and as well as sovereign funds, and in U.S. dollars, that'd be the strategic Bitcoin reserve if we ever get one. The myth is that they'll perpetuate the Bitcoin price. There will always be a bid. Okay, that cannot be true. At some point in time, the Treasury itself will decide that Bitcoin is too expensive to put money into, and same thing with Michael Saylor and Bitcoin, or the bonds that are covering that Bitcoin price will not have a bid, and therefore Bitcoin will not take a bid from these types of companies. And if you need me to unpack a little bit further, do prepare your questions. But there's no way for these types of actions to perpetuate a constant bid to, say, infinity. At some point in time, the bid does need to relax, and the market will need to find lower. Okay, so these are just myths that are running this market higher. Now I want to get back, and we'll unpack some of these things as we go along. But I want to take us back to my history at Money Show. This was shown in July 2023. You can see where that box lies. It lies in a big area, but I was looking for a bottom between 24K and 14K. We found a bottom in 14.5. I mean, something similar happened in when I first started with the Money Show, and I was talking about Bitcoin bottoming in 2018 in the 3,000 region. It bottomed at 3,150. So it's still sometimes this theory and the way we operate, it just amazes me even when I'm in the middle of it. And sometimes I even say to myself, I couldn't possibly be right about this level now. But certainly we found a bottom in Bitcoin in 15.5. Now look at that 5 up there, and it kind of hovers around that 125K area, right? So again, this was, I'm pretty sure we can go back to the previous presentation somehow on YouTube or something at Money Show, but I tell no lie, this came from back there in 2023 at a presentation Money Show. And then I went to Money Show July 2023, and you could see my box up here in 125K, and the top of this is 195K. As the extreme topping region, and you can kind of see where we were headed, and now where are we? We're right about here, right? I will say that this structure that I actually warned that I don't know if this is exactly how it's turned out, because a lot of the structure off the 2023K low was weird from an Elliot Wave perspective. But it did still allow me to get some micro supports along the way. That said, the structure didn't turn out to be exactly like this. However, it did go where it should go, and is there now. Dates are never important in my work. I should say that. Elliot Wave is not a time-based. We make guesses about that, and I've always said if you want something I'm wrong on, it is always the date, because I actually never stand by it. But we did get to the price, and we're right about there now. We've topped so far at 123 and 200. Okay. Now, There's a, again, I want to, I'm going to unpack this range a bit. So again, what I want to try to explain this, when we use the theory on long price projections, we get an area, and nominally, typically the market tops closer to the bottom, but certainly in euphoric, parabolic moves, you can see an extension to the top. Bitcoin has a pretty good tendency of being tame in the fifth wave and hitting the bottom of it. But 195K is where I'm wrong, and we're gonna go into that a little bit further. As long as the price sustains above it, doesn't. If it spikes above it, comes right back down, which happens sometimes in tops, then I can't say I'm wrong. But if it sustains over it, consolidates over it, if you will, then I'll be wrong. But so it's again, this yellow box was drawn back in 2021, and here we are 4 years later. Can't believe it's been 4 years, and we're right about there. Okay. Zooming in, so this is action right off the top, right off the press. Today's chart with my subscribers. We're consolidating in a wave four. Now, let me talk about this process real quick for marking a top. Now that I have a target up here, and it's a very broad, right? 125K to 195K. I start working the more micro structures, and again, they have been exceptionally difficult since 2023 low for various reasons, which are very academic. But I worked those microstructures to try to sort of land the plane on the aircraft carrier, so to speak. We have this broad target. Actually, it's actually in sort of time and space, price and time. All of that is actually very small place and time. After Bitcoin has gone from 0.3 of a cent to $100,000 in 14 years, it's actually a very small space in price and time. But as we get closer, try to nail it a little bit closer as best I possibly can. Partly because, again, in the grand scheme of time, it looks like a very small area. But when you're operating with, say you're trading one Bitcoin, if we just keep it at that, it can be the difference of whether you get out at 125K or if you've got to take sort of a drawdown as it's breaking support into, say, 110, 108. And actually, the first level I'm looking at of calling a sort of quote unquote break will be 108K. So it's as I'm trying to land the plane on the aircraft carrier, it's like, mainly I'm trying to get my subscribers out of maximize the most profit possible. Although it's very impossible to top tick. We try to get as close as possible, right? I've been taking profit out of this space since 50,000, slowly but surely. Because to me, again, in sort of span of space and time, 50,000 to 125K, and I've been trading Bitcoin since 2013. Actually, mostly Ethereum, but some Bitcoin back that far. This is like, who cares, almost. But for those particularly that are new at Bitcoin and are not used to its volatility, the tighter I can get, the better for them, right? So I'm trying to do it, and it's interesting, and it's fun, but it's almost miracle work to a certain degree. Now, as we zoom in here, I see the final price structure a couple ways, and I can't go into the academics, but one is that we take this blue count, which really only needs one more wave to do it. But I see another alternate in the structure, again, given some of the questions I have about the structure since 2023, is that we can go on a few more waves and actually get all the way up to 148. I see it highly improbable that we'll get before that right now. That certainly can change. But that's what I'm seeing. So now, regardless of whether we're looking at this blue V, okay, or an extension of the black, and I just realized I cut it off, all the way up to 148, we have two levels below us that are super key. One is the 114K, which is the tight support on this consolidation that we're having right now. And second would be 108, okay? And that's if it breaks this support, that'll open the door to this region between about 111 and 108, okay? And if that breaks, it is highly probable that we've already seen the top. Again, keep in mind that although I've said 125K, we got 123,260. That's like, again, landing an airplane on an aircraft carrier in terms of price and time, okay? If you can understand that, I hope you can understand that. It's and I'm talking about getting within 2,000 of my target at 125K when we were down at 15.5, right? So it's we're up about 10x, no, not 10x, about 7x roughly, if my math doesn't escape me. And so this could be it. But to get confirmation that we have topped, we can't only just hit my target, but we've got to break things below, and therein is the problem. So I'm watching these levels below to get everyone out again as tight and safely as possible. Now, if you want real confirmation that the top is in and 70, I don't see any bullish perspective, at least not in a year or so or more, if 74,500 breaks. As I call that the cyclical bear pivot. So tight support consolidation. First warning that we have a bear market, 108K. I will be largely out if that breaks from here, or at least on a sustained basis. And then 74,500, the cyclical bear pivot. Okay. So if you have any questions about this, we are going to have Q&A, and this is probably the crescendo of the presentation. I'm going to continue to unpack, some of the aspects of how I see the warnings of the top, sort of in the sentiment. But get your questions together. We'll do a Q&A after, because I certainly at this point assume that you have some questions. So again, what if I'm wrong? And I'm going to go for one last chart. So again, I'm wrong if, as I said, if we have a sustained break over price of 195K. I would still expect a bearish cycle to start, but north of 200K. But that bearish cycle to come, if I'm wrong, will be more tame and likely a shorter duration. It's more likely to drop to no more than 30 to 50K instead of a potential that I see that Bitcoin could drop back to 10K. And it'll take a while to get there, and possibly 3K. I think the 3K is actually low probability, but there are reasons in the Elliot Wave theory why it's reasonable to look back at the 2018 low as sort of final support. Okay. All right, so that is if I'm wrong, and we're going to we have a chart for that, which is the weekly Bitcoin. Now this black count has been sort of my primary count for many years, and as we get into what I call primary third wave on the weekly chart or monthly chart, if you will, doesn't matter. I've been looking for this very large bear market, one where Bitcoin can go up and even break to all-time highs in this B wave, but largely go nowhere over many years, could even be 10 years, even to the point where I wondered, am I going to be around when Bitcoin finally gets to my expected 1 million to 3 million eventually in primary 5. But this will be a trying period for Bitcoiners that are used to Bitcoin just making, having one red year basically is all it's ever had, and then 3 years of up. So that would be very trying. If it breaks over 195, then I would expect it to be in this red count, which is actually the sort of a building of the setup to get it to 1 million. But I would still expect, again, a minor bear market, which is this red 2. This could be as low as 30K, but more comfortably might be around closer to 50K. That would be more regular to a Bitcoin bear market in history so far. 50% to 75% pullbacks in bear markets have been the norm, the mathematical norm. So this would be pretty normal to this. This would be sort of historic, if you can call anything that's been around for 15 years historic, in terms of Bitcoin's price history. Okay, so that's a difference. That's what I'm looking for. In terms of, in terms of actually, if we topped at 125, I'm going to be watching for this alternate anyway. I'm going to be watching for the potential that Bitcoin finds a bottom, and all of the things that happen at bottoms, both in price action and sentiment, in the 30 to 50K region anyway, because I may be wrong, not just in the height here, but I may be wrong where the market finds a bottom. So this is an alternate view that I will take seriously regardless whether Bitcoin tops at 148 or 125 or takes the extended view to 195 or higher. I will be watching that level as we go into the future, probably over the next year or two. All right. Just some sentiment warnings, and again, these are some of the things that we just often see in Bitcoin and other markets, right? You get wild projections by end of year. I use that by end of year quote because I don't know how many Bitcoin podcasts I've listened to of late that, earlier in the cycle they'd say 1 million at the end of the year. They got tame because this cycle has operated a little slower, as if 7x is slow. So now they started saying 250,000. Well, I just heard a projection on a podcast the other day that 400,000 by the end of the year. Okay, so that would be from here a 4x within 5 months. To me, it baffles me. I mean, and we've had a cycle that's moved very slowly, and now we expect it to accelerate. Yes, in euphoric tops, you can get some acceleration, but I think actually the 7x move is it's euphoria. But yeah, we'll see. And then we hear this term, this cycle is just beginning. I hear that quite often on Bitcoin podcasts, see it on Twitter, other social media, and that one's funny because most Bitcoiners know that Bitcoin has worked very regularly on a 4-year cycle. I don't think that that's a cycle that will always work. But basically that cycle ends if we're following verbatim the cycles in the past, that cycle ends in about October of this year. So classically, if I got it right, I did a bunch of research last night to see if I had that right because I'm not a follower of those cycles. I follow price, but it looks like roughly about August 25 would be the classic ending of this bullish cycle. And if you're wondering what drives that 4-year cycle, everyone generally believes it's the halving, which is where Bitcoin miner rewards are cut in half. And classically, there's been some tie of Bitcoin movement to that. Again, I can debate whether that will always be the case. Anytime the market gives you something so regular that you can trade and invest on, it likes to take it away. Because again, we have no free lunches in investing or trading, but it's too easy to rely on this 4-year cycle. But we'll see. And that would be October 25. So from that standpoint, if the cycle began in 2022, then it certainly is closer to the end than to the beginning. And then there's again these company treasury and sovereign funds will power Bitcoin prices to the moon. Again, there'll always be a bid. I'm going to talk about some problems in regards to that next. Um, um, so again, my open theory, and again, I want to say very clearly that I do not trade off the whys, I trade the whats. And what do I mean by that again? It is price action, price theory. I don't, I like to make theories about this bear market coming and what will drive it. I don't really care in the end in terms of my money exposure as long as I'm on the right side of the market. But I do believe that this coming bear will be an institutionally driven. I forgot one point here is that I actually believe this cycle going up has been institutionally driven because what I've seen across the Bitcoin space is a lot of Bitcoin, especially retailers, lost their pants, so to speak, in the 2021 altcoin rally. A lot of sort of garbage was put around. Now we've got meme coins and all of that, and folks are trading those things because that's fast money versus a more reliable Bitcoin trade. I'm in both. I size differently between Bitcoin and meme coins and all of that. But I've seen retailers sort of generally get sort of funny. I like to use the term, it's kind of crass, but Bitcoin, it's called financial decapitation. I mean, people run into some of these assets, they run them up, sometimes they leverage up, and they come down so fast. I mean, meme coins can go 90% in a week sometimes. They come down so fast that you can imagine how much money is lost. Sometimes more money is lost than people actually have. So we see that in these cycles, and it just seems like this cycle retailers are trading with some of that sort of a little bit of just kind of drawn out capital or sucking capital out of Bitcoin into some of these other things. Then there's these treasury companies that are coming on board to get into Bitcoin, and MicroStrategy, which is now called just Strategy, was a company that had declining cash flow but still had positive cash flow most quarters, and big Michael Saylor's a fairly smart guy, and he came up with this bond scheme to buy Bitcoin and basically increase his debt and then trade Bitcoin as a cash flow or help the cash flow over time. What he started was actually a cycle of companies in way poorer shape than Strategy getting involved. And I'm talking about, now we've got GameStop. We've got this gaming company, SBET, going into Ethereum. These companies have terrible cash flow. And if they decide to do this on debt, they might do fine as long as we're in a bull market, but just a little bit of bear market might pressure them straight out of the Bitcoin trade, and they may actually be that supply that gets sold onto the market in the feedback loop that I talked about earlier. Okay, so that's an open theory I have, but we'll see. Many of these companies bought Bitcoin based on its long-term CAGR while ignoring its normal volatility, right? I mean, the CAGR on Bitcoin has been incredible. It's averaged, what, 200% a year. It's slowing down a bit, but that doesn't come without Bitcoin again dropping 50% to 75% in its typical bear market, right? We haven't seen any proof that that's going to change. So some of these companies may not be able to hang on to their Bitcoin. Volatility, debt to cash flow ratio. Again, a lot of them are in terrible cash flow shape. And I'm picking on GameStop. I'm picking on SBET, but I've kind of gone through the balance sheets of a few of these companies, and it just looks terrible, or the financial statements. But yeah, so we'll see. I mean, and then again, companies that cannot hodl, as I said, may feed the feedback loop into a bear market. So the whole point of all that I'm sharing here again is this is a common narrative in the market. And I don't expect you to buy wholesale into this, but again, always consider what narratives you have in regards to investing and trading. Are they fragile narratives? Are they foolproof? Are those belief systems, do you have so much faith in them that they may lead to poor decision making? I think that's very important. One thing about me, again, I trade price action, price structure. I ultimately look at what the market is doing versus what is going on out there in the news streams and even what's going on in companies' balance sheets, et cetera, et cetera. But this is the narrative that I hear from people. And again, what I am classically hearing is that price can only go up when this is going on, which is just simply never true, right? Price can never always go up. Okay. So keep that in mind. I'm not trying to shake you out of good decision making, but actually the opposite, trying to get you to just weigh the narratives that you listen to here. And you don't have to believe that a bear market is coming right away, but if it does start to start to form, you heard it here first, maybe, possibly. All right. So my tactics, again, I've been reducing overall exposure to crypto space starting at 50K Bitcoin. It's just, again, I've been in Bitcoin and all, altcoins, et cetera, for enough period of time to where it's grown. I mean, it's actually changed my financial future quite a bit. I just don't need to keep, so much wealth in it. I will remove most exposure to altcoins as we get to the top. I will always have some Bitcoin. I consider it part of a long-term strategy, much like some of these treasury companies, but I have a positive cash flow. But I keep some of this Bitcoin in cold wallets. I call it the never sell. I hope to give it to my kids. I may need it in my retirement, but I have some Bitcoin in multi-sig, so it's highly secure, cold wallets, not on exchange, and that Bitcoin I don't intend to sell unless I'm really in duress and need to, or hopefully I can pass it on to kids. So I always have that, but I'm reducing my exposure a lot. I have swing trading accounts. I do a lot of swing trading. That's how I learned how to trade when I was in stocks and options. I still am, but where I began my trading life, I was always a swing trader, and so those swing accounts will move to trading both long and short. In Bitcoin. In all bear markets, you get really intense rallies, sometimes way more intense than in bull markets. So even in a bear market, we'll take some long trades and we'll take some short trades. Just probably the worst thing is to try to short into a bull market because bull markets just tend to grind and grind and grind, like we've seen in Bitcoin and S&P 500 of late. And then again, though I reduced my exposure today, or have reduced my exposure a bit and will continue to do so, Bitcoin bears are great opportunities to accumulate Bitcoin on the cheap. I can say this with 100% accuracy. I did not make the bulk of my crypto winnings in bull markets, but actually in bear markets, but starting to accumulate slowly, carefully, not on leverage, just a little bit of dollar cost averaging, and then just waiting for that bottom and then start to press the gas near the bottom when it looked like it was likely. I mean, that has been the biggest wealth builder, not trying to suck out every little bit of juice out of a bull market. And honestly, with a lot of my interaction with retailers, it is the opposite with them. They only want to be in the river going up, and they never want to be in the river. They never want to be shorting the river. They always want to be in the river going up, and they never want to be hopping on as the river down is starting to slow. So that's a better way of putting it. But and I have learned to do the opposite. It just, you have to be a lot more careful in the bear market, right? You can't, again, no leverage. You got to keep your size smaller. You got to be more patient. And you also got to have positive cash flow when you're doing it too, so that you can keep doing it and do it on the cheap. All right, so that is all. I'll take questions. I will zoom us right back, at least until I get a question that where I need to hit a slide. I'll go take us back to the QR codes because I know some people are always um, maybe coming in late and not able to capture. But if you want, again, a copy of this presentation, you can, or a free trial, you can use these QR codes. And how
Thank you,
about
Ryan.
questions? Yep.
Yes, we do have some questions here. I'm going to speed through them. I know that some of them you've probably covered, but
Yep.
just in the interest of getting everyone's questions answered, JJ had asked, what wave are we in now?
But yeah, we can go back to. I'll be honest that I have there are some problems with doing Elliott Wave on Bitcoin because when it first traded, it wasn't on mass exchanges. So actually on our site, I have three alternatives. So you're looking at the primary I operate on until proven wrong, and it has two alternates itself. And mainly, it's this third wave. This is basically the primary third, which is like the third off its beginning. It's the largest third we'll see in this pattern, probably the largest third we'll see in my lifetime, most likely. Again, assuming that this wave, and some of those that are young, maybe in their teens, they'll live for the larger third that's out here. So we're looking for the top in that third, and basically because of the big differences in the beginning prices in Bitcoin. Again, do you count the pizza bot purchase, for instance, Bitcoin, pizza day where pizza was purchased for like almost nothing in Bitcoin? Do you count that as a trade versus some of the bulletin board trades? So this is the problem with Bitcoin because it hasn't been on public exchanges for its entire life. And Elliott Wave is kind of based on mass sentiment. So that's why you get some of these differences. And so whether the third tops in at 225 or tops at actually 3 million, I really don't have a strong edge, but I'm giving you basically the price structure I'm looking for to start clarify that, right? So I get a theory from the beginning, and then we always have to watch the market for it to clarify around some of these pivot points that we discover. I don't know,
Thanks,
that's a
Ryan.
lot of words.
No, I think everyone appreciates it, but
Yeah.
we do have some other questions. But Eddie just asked one that I think relates to where you are now. Do you think we've hit a top on Bitcoin?
Again, if we go back to I don't operate on I think. I have pivots where that it's indicative in price. And basically this is my warning right here, 108K. But I also talk in probabilities. This is confirmation down here at 74,500. And the problem is if we won't know until we get down there, what do you do up here, right? And my approach is to take some profit. I'm not taking all my profit. I will enjoy some gains if it continues to extend, but we're definitely right. Every day that goes by, you get closer to the top than to the bottom. So I operate on this sort of scale out as we go, pay myself as we go, because when the top is in, that's it. It's going to be moving too fast for anyone to get as much as they wanted out. Okay. So I'm trying to get back to wisdom and don't imagine yourself top ticking. I can't do it either. I have done it. I actually top ticked MSTR, its top by something like the hour or the day last year, and we haven't seen that top taken out yet. But that's rare. That's really, really rare. Same thing on bottoms. I get closer on bottoms than on tops, but it's really rare. So don't imagine yourself going to tease Bitcoin up to the very top and get out right on time. It's not going to happen. However, we are getting closer. And again, I'm looking for levels below to confirm. But again, the problem is, if we hit 108, we're at what, 117 today, and we hit 108, you've lost 8 grand per Bitcoin, right? So, does that mean you sell today? I'll leave that up to you. I'm not selling today because I've sold, what I want to get out of it earlier. And the next sell I'm going to have at 126. But if we break 108, I'm going to be, substantially out. Except for that long-term Bitcoin. Okay, does that make sense? I'm trying to get it back to tactics versus this I think, this theory, and all of that. because you have to, using Elliot Wave skillfully means you adopt some very sound trading tactics on top of it.
Yeah. Hey, I have Johnny in our chat asking if you wouldn't mind going back to the QR code. It
Yeah.
looks like you were right. We did have some
Yeah.
stragglers coming
Always the
in.
case. I get it. I'm slow. I can't get my phone out fast enough, get it to work.
Right. So Johnny, if you're listening now, we do have the QR code up. If you want to go ahead and take a picture of that now, go ahead. And I think you had mentioned meme coins earlier, Ryan. Michael in our chat had asked for your opinion on that. If you want to just go over it again.
I mean, I'll be like, where I trade Bitcoin in immensely larger size, I often take my meme coin trades between $50 and maybe $300, seriously, because they work great. But the winning, now Elliott Wave sort of does is sort of an okay analysis technique for meme coins. Honestly, I don't know of one that works better. But honestly, when I was doing my taxes in 2024, my win rate in meme coins was about 11% is what I got out of my stats. But I did make $20,000. Okay, so it's, some people are making millions in meme coins because they're throwing bigger money at it. To me, they are a very, very risky trade that are fun because you can watch $50 become thousands. But again, assume you'll lose most of those trades unless you again. I do know that most people that make a lot of money in meme coins are like hanging out in the discords they're actually experiencing pump and dumps, which is the discord people pushing it. And if you ride the pump and dump skillfully, you'll get in and out safely. And if you're slow on the trade, you'll get out with a big loss. That's how I see that whole thing operating. Elliott Wave, we catch some as the trend develops and but again, you know, I do it. It's fun. I just don't risk a lot. That's probably the best summary I can give you.
Well, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today. It's always a pleasure having you on these virtual shows. We still have questions coming into the chat, but we are running out of time here. I will try and just swing one more question in here
Okay.
for you.
Yep. Yep.
Let's see. Larry had asked, could you give an idea of a target for ETH? Is that Ethereum?
I have not liked the Ethereum chart. I mean, it's pumping of late, and I can see it running to a range anywhere from 4,000 to 10.5 if it gets a real pump. And again, it's like managing. I'm not in it in any kind of size. I have hated the chart for 2 years. It's largely been range bound, and now it's sort of decided to finally go. And I didn't like the setup before it went. That happens. So I don't have a strong, obviously the reason I'm not in it is because I don't have a strong edge. Some Elliott Wave patterns are messy, but that's the range I see. I wish I had a support region for you because that's always the key, right? So it's 4,000 to 11,000 until something breaks, but I just don't remember where that's at. I don't have that chart in front of me. That's more important than the target, to be honest.
Thanks again, Ryan. It's been fantastic having you on. Thank you for getting to so many of those audience questions. I know they
Yep.
appreciate it as well.
Yep.
And
Thanks,
to those
everyone.
of you, yes. And to those of you in our live audience, be sure to tune back in tomorrow, 9 a.m. sharp Eastern time. We'll be joining you for another full day of virtual presentations. Looking forward to it. Until then, everyone have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.